All right. Welcome to the Blue Byron Books podcast. I'm joined all the way in San Francisco by Audrey Scott. How you doing?
I am good. And you?
Excellent.
Okay. Well, cool.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
I try to use different words
Okay.
when people ask that question because the usual is just like good, fine, okay, right? So
Yeah.
I like to throw some pizzazz in there every now and then and say like phenomenal, outstanding, excellent,
Yeah. It's
borderline awesome is my favorite.
yeah. It's definitely more interesting. I think I always say good, no matter like where I'm at. It just kind of feels like what I'm supposed to do. But it always feels like it's just a preamble to an actual conversation, and then I'll get into how I'm actually doing,
So
after.
so do you feel like when someone asks how you doing, is it like a faux pas to actually like disclose more information rather than just like a one word answer?
I think a little bit. I've heard this critique from a lot of like non-Americans about this question that Americans like to ask a lot and how like it doesn't mean actually how you're doing. It's just like a introduction, which I
Yeah.
kind of would agree with, given how I generally respond to it. I think that
Yeah.
it's just kind of like a greeting, and then it is like maybe an offering for someone to go deeper, but generally people don't take it as such. And they
Yeah.
just like do like, or like if I'm doing like not good, I'll just say I'm doing fine. I won't
I'm
go
doing
like,
okay. I'm hanging
yeah,
in there. Yeah.
okay. Like that's not great. But you don't like generally go, oh, I'm terrible actually right now. Unless you like really want to get into it immediately.
Yeah. Well, it seems appropriate. Good. Because
Hmm.
you were just telling me before this that you were just camping in Yosemite.
I was, and that was really awesome. But I said good because, I didn't want to get into that already, but we can talk about it. Yeah, I went camping and it was awesome. I love camping. And I haven't been in a while, and I was alone for a good amount of it. And I think going solo t camping is a really like magical experience sometimes.
So is this a overnight thing or is it just for the day or what is
Yeah,
this?
I was there for 2 nights. So I left on Monday, and then I got there like later. I found some BLM land to like sleep on, that night, and then
BLM land? What does that mean?
that's Bureau of Land Management. That is land that you are able to sleep on for up to 14 days, like in one location, and it's all over the country. And it's basically just like free land that you can sleep on if you find like an offshoot of a road. And there's like regulations about where it is and how close it is to a river or whatever. But once you kind of know that, it's pretty easy to go camping and kind of like just travel the country and pretty cheap too. I really didn't spend that much
Huh.
money on this trip.
So you're in a national park.
Yes. Well, right outside the national park for camping. National parks do cost money.
Okay. Yeah, that's my experience. So I'm
Hmm.
a sucker. I go in with like a single tent. I go in by myself, say Rocky Mountain National Park, right?
Hmm.
I pay like $20
Hmm.
for a camping space and I
Yeah.
just post up my tent and hey, not what you're saying is that there's like if you look into it, you could just pop up a tent somewhere else.
Yeah. No, that is what I'm saying. It is kind of a life hack. I will say there are advantages to having a campsite.
Yeah.
Bathrooms are really nice. You don't
Yeah,
have a
that was on
bathroom.
my mind.
You don't have like water or like, I mean, you could have a river and filtration and stuff. It's like also like safety sometimes. I will be honest that sometimes
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like great. I've had some experiences, and my friends have had experiences where they just like are like so scared to even fall asleep, because you're out there and you'll hear weird noises, and there's no one around except for like if you see that one person. And that's a little scary, but this experience was pretty positive. I found a good spot and I wasn't bothered and I slept in my car and so I felt pretty safe.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
you're able to sleep in your car, it's definitely like a life hack. Like there's some big advantages to it if you're, you know, able to do that.
definitely. I like spent one night sleeping in my car and then one night in a tent with my friend and I honestly got a lot more sleep in my car because it was warmer and I felt
Yeah.
safer and like the noises,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah,
Huh.
no.
So
I mean,
when you're in the park, what are you doing? Like
mhm.
what do you do?
I feel like so yesterday was like my full day of doing what I wanted to do. I really didn't plan it, which is sometimes just like how I like to go. I just want to see like what do I want to do. And yesterday what I wanted to do was like wake up, go to like a place to find a bathroom and get ready and then just head to the park. I like drove in. I don't know if you've been to Yosemite, but
It's on the list. I have not.
yes,
I've been to
it's
Yellowstone. Yellowstone's
okay.
good.
Yellowstone is also good. I think Yosemite might be one of my favorite national parks. I've gone to all of them in California now. And I've gone to the mo like to Yosemite the most, probably because it's the closest. But they have this like amazing drive that you're like going through where you're just like seeing like these different like spots of just like rolling mountains and hills. And then suddenly like you turn this corner and you go through like these tunnels and then you actually see the valley of Yosemite, which like is incredible, I will say. Like there's so many waterfalls. There's just like breathtaking like rock faces of granite, Half Dome of course.
Yeah.
And the trees are just incredible and you just like can't help but like feel and honestly like I wasn't planning on going to Yosemite. I didn't realize it was so close to where I was camping. And the fact that I did, I just felt so lucky that I have access to this place and then it was so
Yeah.
close and that I chose for myself to go there and to make a day of it. And like I got down there and I like parked my car and I went to a few of the waterfalls. Lots of people like to hike or like bike around there. Um, I ended up not like staying for that long, honestly. I've been to Yosemite before. I ended up driving back on that same road, which I loved, and finding like a hiking spot a little bit outside the park because I really just I wanted my solo day to be solo, and Yosemite is not the most solitary place given the amount of people who go to it because it's a very popular destination.
Which
So
is ironic, yeah.
yeah. But it makes sense. It's beautiful and it's worth it. So I get it. But I wanted to be alone and I found this like random waterfall hike and I started going on that. I set up a hammock halfway through and I journaled and then I got to the waterfall and I read my book and I chilled out there until like I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave. And then I went and made myself dinner. I found the campsite I was gonna meet my friend at, and I did a little off-roading, which was honestly a little scary, but it can be a little
Mm.
exhilarating. And yeah, that was my day. It was exactly what I wanted it to be.
That sounds like the best.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It's cool to remember that you can just like do things sometimes, especially when you're alone and you can just like make your dreams come true for yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like did you plan this out? How far in advance did you plan this out?
So I had an inclination that I wanted to go camping these days because I knew I had like time off of work and I knew my friend wanted me to come visit her. Uh, but up until Monday, I wasn't entirely sure how I wanted to do it. I have gone like camping
Right.
a lot. And I think because of that, it feels pretty low key for me now. I have like all of the basic equipment that I would need, like a sleeping bag and tent, and sleeping pad, um, fuel and stuff. So I kind of just decided morning of Monday, like I am actually gonna go camping. Let me just shove everything in my car, um, grab some food that I have lying around, and then
Yeah,
I
it's great.
found like one campsite that I thought might work, but I wasn't sure. And so I was like, I'll just download the Google map and then see what it is once I get up there. But yeah,
Nice.
yeah, and it all worked out as it often does.
See, now you give me some inspiration, you know?
Yes, that's what I hope. People need to like take more advantage of their free will and ability to just go camping.
Yeah. And also just giving yourself like a solo day.
Hmm.
Just like go do something for yourself yourself to away from everything else, you know? And I mean that especially mentally, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Totally. It's very mental, and I think it's very important. I've realized how important it is for me to like be alone and kind of like remember like the fundamentals of who I am without like the interpretation of like anyone else. And having
mm,
that and doing something that I like truly love to do. Even like when I do think that camping with friends can be in some ways more fun. Just because it's awesome to share an experience with someone and like feel like, you know, that view with someone who also feels that view. But doing it alone, I think, is really helpful to your sense of self and like your importance to yourself. Um,
mm,
and also just giving yourself time to think uh, can be important and not always
yeah.
something that I actively seek out, as
How
much.
was the sky?
Um, the sky was pretty good. The first night it was a little foggy because it rained. And then the second
Okay.
night, I saw like the moon was out a lot, so I didn't see as many stars. I have seen some good stars of my life though. Like I
Mm.
can't complain. And each time I go back outside, I'm like spectacular. Not in the city though, obviously. But
Yeah, I try to do that every night. Look up at the sky and
hmm.
stars. It's so active. It's so active right now.
Yeah,
Uh, where I am. I'm in like rural Wisconsin,
yeah.
but nearby Milwaukee. So I
Hmm.
see planes and I feel like there's some satellites and then see really good stars. Really good. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
helps
Yeah,
you like anchor yourself to realize how small, how like life
yeah.
is but a speck in the continuum of time
Hmm.
and not to take things so seriously. It's like your problems just instantly evaporate. You're like, that's that's stupid to be stressed about.
Yeah, no, totally.
You
That
know?
is honestly my favorite part of camping, I would say.
Okay.
Like I think the stars are kind of like a privilege for me while living in the city, just because you just don't see it in as clear of a way as I do when I'm
Yeah.
camping. And the reason that I love camping so much is this like way to kind of remember how small you are and to be outside.
Hmm.
And like that feeling of the stars, I totally get because I think that's like one of the most extreme versions, but like that's how I can get when I see like a great view or a giant tree or the ocean or any of these things. It's
Yeah.
just like that sense of awe and wonder that I think is very
Yeah.
important, kind of center you and remind you what things are actually important. And I think that's why I like camping so much. It's just like kind of a reminder of the largeness of life outside your tiny world.
I love that. I love that. And it's a great transition into some other
Hmm.
topics regarding books.
Yeah.
Why don't you briefly introduce yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, sure. So I'm Audrey. I am a recent grad who has been spending a lot of my time exploring what it is to be a person. I think that's what I've been trying to do. my like sense of identity, the sense of the mind and the body and the exploration of how I want to live. And I've been doing this through reading and writing a thesis last year, and now writing more about ritual and trying to get a better sense of how I can live my best life. And I think that is like through deep contemplation about what it is to feel like a person and what it is to act in the world as someone who has an identity.
I love that. I love that. I'm really energized about the project we have going on here.
Yeah, me too. It's exciting stuff. It's the things that I'm like wanting to like explore, and now I get to explore it in a
Yeah.
more concrete way.
Cool. What originally got you interested in books and writing?
Yeah. I think I've always considered myself a storyteller. I remember like that was one of my first like memories of telling stories to my brother in like the back of the car, and getting really excited about these like characters and these creatures that I could imagine up. And then I think that in middle school is when I like concretely developed my dream of being an author. I think middle school was just, a time for me, and I was sad and mad about the world and I didn't understand it, and I was learning how cruel it could be, and I was trying to like figure out what I could do with all that cruelty and all this terribleness that I was like discovering, and I started writing, and I think that really helped this process of trying to understand the world as I began to like make my way of like uncovering these emotions and these feelings that I was having uh into like a narrative, and being able to speak aloud these like terrible things that I understood, that I needed to have other people understand. And I think that started to like it started somewhat of as a therapy, and then I think it also kind of transitioned into me realizing how much I love to build worlds and like create ideas, and explore and research. I started doing a lot of research for like the story that I was creating, and I realized that like research could be fun, unbeknownst to me and being in middle school and hating a lot of like what school had to offer. I actually liked to learn, and I got to do that with writing. And when I wasn't writing, I was immersing myself in books and escaping the terribleness of this world for the terribleness of others. And I thought that was beautiful. And yeah,
What would you say are the three books that have influenced you most?
yeah. Well, I think the first book would probably be one from that same time period in middle school, because I think that part of my life was very influential. And it was called Afterworlds. It's a book by Scott Westerfeld, and it basically uncovers two different stories. One is about a girl who like almost dies and meets these ancient death gods, and the other is about a girl who is writing this story. This is what kind of made me think was possible to be a writer, and made me fall in love with like the craft in this like alternative version of storytelling that I hadn't seen, where like it was going in between these stories, and I was learning a lot about one story through like the explanation of the other. Um, but yeah, that was one of them. I think the next, like, and I'm saying like influential, probably this one is more influential for me like now. But
Okay.
Parable of the Sower, by Octavia Butler. This is
Okay.
the story of a post-apocalyptic world and a girl discovering like her truth, and her truth is that God is change. And she's learning this as the her entire world is falling apart and everything is changing, and she's developing this
Mm,
spiritual identity through this like religious like basically creating her own religion and bringing people
okay.
into this sense of belief. And I think it's a really powerful story, the way that it can like explain what belief is and what religion can look like, especially how it can be built from like terrible atrocities. And I don't know, I just think it's beautifully done, and it's been an inspiration for me in like the ways that I want to tell stories. Um, and then a third book I would say is probably The Spiral Dance by Starhawk. This is the only like more nonfiction book, and it is like I think one of the first like witchy books that I was reading while I was writing my thesis,
Okay.
which really inspired me in how I could like approach these topics, because I think she just writes very beautifully about these topics that I was very skeptical of. And she like tells this like complex history of witches and like belief and ritual, and like kind of like pairs it all together to create like a story and a method of self-healing. Um, and yeah, I think it's so very well done and very inspirational for me. But yeah.
Awesome. Those are good selections. You described them well too.
Okay, I'm glad. I
Um,
want you to know why I enjoy them.
right, of course. Is there a book that you continually return to?
Hmm. I think there's a lot of books. I am definitely a rereader. I
Okay.
really enjoy like going back into the archives and then figuring out like something new that I've like learned about the world through that. But a book that I think that I grab it, or like that I've gone back to, I think I'm going back into the archives to say Hunger Games, honestly. Um,
Ugh.
yeah, I loved those books growing up. And you know what? They still hold up. Out of all of the dystopian novels that I read as a child, Hunger Games, I think, is one of the most um, thoughtful and interesting, and like the ways that they explore like um, oppression and energy. I have like written about in papers recently in the ways that like we
Mm.
uh, I mean, I this is why I think it's on the mind, because I reread it after writing a paper about how we're kind of like decentralized from our sources of energy and power, and the district system is doing that just in a more like uh obvious fashion. Like everyone is separated from the like their means of like their lives, you know? Like all the coal is like made in one district, but then it's all used in like the capital. And the capital is completely like shut around from all the things that make up their lives. And I think that that is how our culture also exists in lots of ways, where we are separated by all of the conveniences that we're given. And it becomes very easy to not care and to consume. And I think it's a powerful like story that is just like explained um, more clearly. But yeah.
So when you say energy, what do you mean by that
Well, this was a
in that book?
class on uh for you mean the Hunger Games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Hunger Games obviously like kind of goes a lot into District 12, which is the coal mining district. Um and how oppressed the people are who live in that district. And obviously, there is some relation with like Appalachia, and like how
Mm.
that is kind of representing that, and like the exploitative system that the coal mining industry already has, like in our world and stuff. It's just like further accentuated in the Hunger Games books. Um, but I think the fact that they focused so much on that kind of shows like, you know, that's where like the whole country was getting all their energy, but only these people were focused on this, and only them were like were suffering the consequences of what coal mining is, which is dangerous, and a lot of the men would die, and most of the people were starving, and then no one in the capital needed to suffer. And I think
Hmm.
that just kind of brings up that larger issue that like we don't often like think about like where our energy comes from when we turn on the lights or turn on our AC or
Yeah.
something. And even if it's not all coming from coal, I mean, it's still mostly coming from places that are hurting the planet, and we just don't really think about it that much.
That's interesting. So when you reread them, do you pick up new stuff when you do it?
Totally. Like this time around, that's what I was thinking about a lot because I was reading about that in my like classes and reading about
Okay.
our separation from energy use. And I was seeing that in the Hunger Games and in the way that they were talking about these districts and understanding like the ways that the political systems were kind of mirroring our own.
So when do you feel like it's more I feel like it's like symbiotic, but like is it because you're at a different point in your life that you're like aware or like you're experiencing something different in your life than what you did the previous time you read it? And so like other stuff stands out to you, or do you feel like you understand the writer and the writing more?
I think that it's really about what I'm learning about in the world in that moment,
Yeah.
and that influences me because I feel like there are often times in my life where I'm like, wow, like all my classes and like everything that I'm learning and talking about are all like kind of about the same theme. Like that's crazy. How is that happening?
Mm,
Uh, I think a lot of times it's my mind doing that, picking up on these details like of a general. I'm getting a lot of information, and suddenly I'm now able
yeah.
to pick up the patterns in that,
Yeah.
and everything is kind of coexisting and creating this like larger narrative of what I'm learning in my life at that specific time period.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you read more for ideas, language, or feeling? And has it changed over the years?
I probably read for all three, but ideas most of all, I would say.
Interesting. Okay.
Did you
I
think
see
I would?
that. I see that.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I like, the feelings are really important. I was talking about that with like what got me into writing and stuff, but what I crave most from reading is to like learn something new and to see into like another world and understand through this other perspective. Like I need to feel so that like new understanding and those ideas can like settle in myself. You need to relate in some ways, and
Yeah.
that's how we relate as humans. We feel. So that's like an essential aspect of it. But what I'm like really grasping for are new ideas and new like forms of understanding the world. And then like language is just always an added bonus. Like I want to read something beautiful.
Yeah. Nice. What does your consumption of creativity look like on a daily basis?
Yeah. It varies. I'll, watch like if there's something like good on TV, like a good drama or something dramatic, I like that. Books are more like long standing, so like I'll slowly like over like, a week or two or a month, depending on the book, like seep into that a bit on my day-to-day life. Music, I'd say, is probably one of the biggest. I love
Mm,
music.
yeah.
Uh, I listen to it all the time. It like completely like changes my mood, and inspires me and gives me new outlooks on life. So I'm listening to a lot of music, and then, I'll do like podcasts or I'll do art. I like to create and craft and stuff. So that's also another part. But yeah.
What kind of music?
Oh, I have quite a bit of variety, I would say. I'm a playlist person. So each year I
Okay.
come up with many different playlists that all have different vibes and
Okay.
genres for moods or settings that I think would be most appropriate. So I've got like techno, hyper pop, rap, like soul, funk, like classic indie or pop. Quite a variety, I would say. It really just depends on my mood and how I want to feel. I've been really
Yeah.
getting into like fusion music right now, like mix of like classical instruments or like something like a guitar or a saxophone with electronic music. Um,
Uh,
but yeah,
Do you use what streaming service do you use?
Spotify, because that's where I got all my playlists.
So Spotify. Spotify. Okay.
Mhm.
Nice.
Mhm.
What would you say your ratio is between creating and consuming?
That's a good question. I'm definitely like, especially at this point in my life, consuming a lot more. I think I would want to be creating a lot more than I am, but it's very easy to consume and it's not as
Yeah,
easy
it
to
is quite
create.
easy. Yeah.
Like you just put on a show and it just keeps going and it won't stop. Like very simple. Yeah, I would say I want to create, it would be better for it to be more, I don't know what the like ideal ratio is. I feel like that's a good question to first come up with, because it's important to consume so that you can create. Because how are you inspired without like inspiration from outside of yourself? But you don't like want to take up all your time consuming because then you just become a consumer, and I
You're
feel like
not contributing.
you're not contributing, and I want to contribute. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if like 50-50 would be better, or I mean like I think a 50-50 would be like a nice goal. I would probably be more at like 75-25 at this point in my life. Um, but I want that to change, and I'm working
How do
towards.
you consume so music? I see that. Like, yeah, that's like part of like just like the background of
Hmm.
life, you know? Like it's so intertwined with your personal life on a daily basis. You had mentioned shows.
Hmm.
Like, what streaming video service do you consume most from?
Yeah, I feel like it varies. Right now I'm logged out of my Netflix, so not Netflix.
So
HBO.
you are intentionally logged out or what?
No, it just logged out and I haven't put in the effort to log back in.
Are you still paying for it?
Yeah, like it's just been it will be a short-term problem, but right now,
Okay, okay.
currently, I've been watching stuff on HBO. Uh, the new season of Euphoria, mostly because I watched it in high school and I'm mildly curious to see what happens next.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
not my favorite show. There are other shows that are better
Yeah.
anymore.
I've been getting into so I was in Chicago recently and I met up with a friend and she sounded like a television infomercialist, like a televangelist, talking about DVDs. She was like, she was like, she's on this kick of collecting DVDs. Um, she's engaged, and she has this thing where like when I'm starting a family, like I want us to have like a collection of art, like a physical, and that we can display it and like here it is, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
Um, And I thought that was interesting. Like where I live in a farmhouse. I don't have Wi-Fi, and my hotspot's pretty bad. So um, I have a DVD player, and I watch DVDs. I go to the thrift store. You can get. I got four Oceans movies. They're like Oceans 11, and then the original for 99 cents. So I'm
Yeah.
like building up DVD collection, and that's how I've been consuming it.
Okay, that's awesome. I do not think I own a DVD player. Um, Nor have
Why
I,
would you? You know, like,
yeah, at this point. I do like the idea of like that kind of ownership. I know people talk about this with like subscription like based viewing and how
yeah,
you really just don't own any of the media that you consume and it could just like go away like that, which is true and fair. And I think there's something like cool about like having that and knowing that like it can't be altered, it can't be taken from you.
yeah.
Have it physically.
You can't show it off if you're
Yeah.
streaming too. You know, like this is who I identify with, who I am. You
Yeah.
know, kind of a thing.
And I get it. I love to collect things too. I just haven't gotten into collecting DVDs, I guess.
Do it. Get into it now before it's like vinyl, and then like vinyl is now like more expensive than any other form. When you
Yeah.
could, if you were like on the trend before, you could probably get a lot of stuff on the cheap. Do you find yourself more influenced and inspired by people from the past or people from today, or own time?
I think that based on the fact that there are more people that have existed in the past than there are people who exist right now, and also the fact that I was a philosophy major who read a lot of dead philosophers, that I would probably have been more inspired by people who have existed in the past and the present, but that's probably just because I haven't met those people or read the books of those who exist today who could inspire me more. I mean, obviously, there are people who inspire me like in my lives, like who I know.
Yeah.
Out of like, the things that I consume, I guess like TV shows are pretty present, but like books and stuff, and historical figures who can be very
Yeah.
influential. Like there's just more of them in the past.
And their story is done. It's written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like you know the end result in a way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something like satisfying in that and satisfying in like being able to like analyze someone like through like the historical perspective versus getting all caught up in the fact that they're like person who's alive who like
Yeah.
can be like wrong. I mean, like obviously there's a lot of people who have lived who are wrong and have done terrible things, and you have to evaluate like how much you trust like their perspective based on like the things you know about their personal life too. But there's like more satisfaction in the fact that like they already like had all the facts. They had all the facts that they had access to, and you can evaluate their
Yeah.
perspective through their current like their time period, and decide what
Yeah.
aspects of it are important. Whereas people who exist today have a lot of the same facts that you do, but are interpreting the world in a different way, and you kind of have to do more to like decide like which facts that they might be emitting that you want to consider a part of our life today, uh, and how that will influence your interpretation on them.
Yeah. Well said. Do you notice patterns in the works of art that you're drawn to?
Um, well, as I think I was saying earlier, once I'm immersed in like an idea or like a focus of my life, all of the art that I consume somehow has to do with that thing. But the patterns I think generally are things that can just like kind of open my mind further, and make me question my reality a bit or take me into another world. I think that's why I gravitate towards a lot of like more fantasy, like sci-fi world because it like does that like seamlessly. But within any of the kind of like art works that I like to consume, they have that piece where like they take me out of myself a bit and bring me into someone else's world and make me appreciate something new that I hadn't known.
Yeah. Have you ever read The Foundation?
I have not.
Uh, Isaac Asimov? Asimov?
I have not, but I can look it up. Shall I
I
read it?
suppose that's less fantasy. It's more sci-fi.
Well, I'm good with both.
I feel like it's something you'd be into. I have not read it. I own it, but I have not read it.
Okay, maybe I'll check it out.
How would you describe your creative process at its best?
Ooh, I think that the creative process that I have, at least when I'm like, especially like at that peak moment of like creativity, I have like five different docs open, all like with open pages where I can detail out different aspects of an idea as I'm trying to piece together like some large concept, some abstract understanding, and trying to get it into words is like I feel like I'm in this flow state where so much information is coming at me and I'm trying to capture it and I'm trying to organize it, and it's like the satisfaction of like playing with this puzzle and trying
Mm,
to put it all together, and like I'm at the computer and I'm switching from tab to tab to tab slash I have a notebook as well just in case I need it for another medium so that I can try and figure out what it is I'm trying to say, what all these pieces mean, and eventually create like one through narrative about all of these concepts that are deeply complex on themselves.
nice. Now, when you say tabs, do you mean tabs or windows on like desktop screens?
A little bit of both. Like I'm switching from my different windows, but I also just like have my little tabs like above me,
Yeah.
showing the different doc sites. But yeah.
I tried. Obviously, I failed. My New Year's resolution was to have two windows with tabs only, rather than having like 10 windows with many tabs.
No.
And then I just can't find some. I like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yes,
So
I
my
do.
New Year's resolution was like, I have one that's kind of like a standard organization, like life organizational stuff, calendar, emails, um, some other spreadsheets, life spreadsheets. I designed this external brain for myself. So that's like what that is. And then whatever I'm working on, that was the like goal. But I realized I like flipping between desktops.
Mm,
So I have
I
four desktop screens. So then
okay.
like I changed it to four.
I mean, it's nice to see everything that you're actually working on. It can be frustrating to flip through. I think the tabs can be really annoying because when you have too many of them, you don't know what are on each one, and you're just
It takes a little more effort to click on a tab than it is to like
yeah, to swipe.
slide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Interesting. What would you say your relationship between discipline and intuition is with meaningful work?
mm, I think that for me the like my relationship with intuition is probably my greatest asset. Like I know when something is good. There's like a physical rush, like it was as I was talking about with my creative process, where I'm like, I know I'm doing this in a good way and I can feel this and I'm like following what I believe is true to myself. I think that's what keeps me going. Uh, Discipline is something I'm still building a healthier relationship with, I'll say.
Is that
It varies.
healthier relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes discipline is like, it can like work beautifully to help me exceed my goals. And I can be like, I'm going to write this amount of words today. And I do it or I do more. And I'm like, look at me. I can do that. But other times I'm like just forcing myself to write before I feel like I'm in that flow state and I'm kind of just
Mhm.
like fighting against this like part of me that's like, oh, I want to be creative. I have these ideas. And the part of me that's like, you have to do it consistent. You have to like, keep these things when I'm like, oh, isn't that all a little arbitrary? Because sometimes it just is a little arbitrary. And I struggle with that because I can reason my way out of following the discipline that
Yeah.
I'm trying to create. So it's definitely more of like a fight than with my intuition that I think just always flows with me.
I feel like a big thing is like just not putting up a zero. You know,
And
as far as discipline goes, like you follow baseball at all?
no.
Okay. Let's say a pitcher, you know, a starting pitcher. Pitcher's really good, but sometimes you just don't have your best stuff. Like it's just not your day.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, I got to figure this out when I'm not at my best. Um, but if you could at least eat up some innings and just not blow it, like you're doing a good job. So I feel like that with discipline too. Some days you like that tension, that struggle, and just like try a little bit. Just like do something
Yeah.
instead of like not even trying. Or like going to the gym, like 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes, you know? So I don't know.
That is very true. And I'm like trying to stick by that more and just be like, okay, I don't feel like writing, but I'm just going to write something, even if I think it feels
Yeah.
bad. I'm going to get things on this pieces of like paper, and feel satisfied that I did at least that. I think that it's a healthier relationship with discipline because when you're trying to grasp for perfection, that's when you just decide to like give up on all of it altogether because you can fail.
Yeah. When someone discovers your work years from now, what would you hope they feel, not just understand?
I feel like I want them to feel like the truth in their body of the words that I'm saying. Like, not just like understand it intellectually, but like, I feel like what I want to do is write about universals, explain these like aspects to the world that I'm trying to grasp at the arbitrariness in a lot of the things we do. And I want that to loosen something in them and to free them from a norm that they were stuck in as I like help them kind of like feel alternative realities and understand that like their world, which can often like everyone's world can feel so small, like there's something so much larger, and I want them to feel that in my
Mm,
understanding.
I love that. That's really good. What's something you're aware that you're learning right now?
What's something that I'm aware that I'm learning?
You've become aware of something you're learning recently. What would you say that would be?
Mm. I think that I've been learning a lot about myself and my body. I've been doing a lot more dance recently, which has
What
been
kind of dance?
I would say contact improv. I've been doing a lot of contact improv. I don't know
I
if
have
you
no idea what that is.
that is okay. It is not well known. Brief explanation of it is it's a dance form that was created in the 70s as an exploration of the body, like using platonic touch as a means of kind of like understanding what it is to be a body. It's improvisational
Okay.
movement with others. And it's like kind of strange. You're
Sounds
just like
fun.
it's free form. You're just like in a room with other people and there's like weird music and you're just like moving and you're like, how shall I?
Mm,
Um,
nice.
and I have been learning a lot about myself through this type of movement. Because when you're like like all of there's no way to do it wrong. And so what
Yeah.
you're trying to do is decide like how what will feel right for you. Um and like with this learning, I think it's like way more like experimental and experiential than a lot of the things that I've been writing about. And I think it's very important for
Okay.
me to be writing and to be like practicing these things at the same time because it's a new type of learning rather than like reading from a book, which can teach you so much. It's like movement, and I'm understanding my body more as I'm like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
move this way. I want to like dance with this person in this specific way where no there's no instruction. There's just like my intuition, and following my intuition
Mm.
is
Yeah.
like another way where I've like started gaining more confidence in like my identity as I've been able to be like, oh, I trust my body's intuition to move in the right way.
Huh. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, moving your body in general is good for your health.
It is. And it's good for your health. It's also good for your sense of identity. I think that this is what I'm trying to write a lot about. This connection that we have, like with our mind or the soul and the body that we exist in, and we have a lot of
Mm.
separation from like how we see ourselves from the body that we're contained in. But so much of our identity is wrapped up in our body, how we see
That's fair.
ourselves, like how we get to move if we are like able-bodied or in some ways struggling with a disability, like all of these shape our experience and
Mm.
shape who we are. And I don't think that we focus as much on the body because lots of times we don't have as much control over it. We kind of like in many ways get what we get, but there's a lot of ways that I think we need to teach like self exploration with our bodies so that we can understand our minds and our whole sense of self more.
Yeah. What in society right now are you most curious about?
Curious.
Be curious to know what you're
I,
curious about.
yes, I'm curious about a lot of things, but if I were to get down to just one thing in society, I'm very curious about control in society and
Mm.
how we are controlled in certain ways, shaped by the knowledge systems that exist. Like our identities are controlled by the ways that we get to understand them, which is through knowledge. And I'm wondering, like, and I'm curious about these ways that like society like casually interact with these forms of control and how they could be shaped, how people can like kind of free themselves in some ways from these forms of control, from these like ways that we're taught to understand our bodies, and what like kind of like countercultural movements can kind of like uplift us from some of the more negative aspects of how we're taught to see ourselves and our bodies.
So like control as in just like pre-existing frameworks of thinking.
Yeah, like there's a lot of ways that we don't realize our self-interpretation is kind of taken from these knowledge systems and taken from these systems that are trying to control us and be like, you are this type of worker, you are this type of like individual, you're different in this way. Let's make you feel a little bad about it or something, you know? And then that controls us. It like makes us feel shameful or guilty about ourselves. And
Mm.
that feels bad. And it's like, how do we stop feeling bad and shameful when we know that that is a product of these like larger power systems that are trying to control us?
And it's through thoughts. So like well, you become what you think. And so if your example to think your identity of who you are is shaped by something external that affects your thoughts, then you become those thoughts, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we are how we see ourselves, and we see
Yeah.
ourselves
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
the knowledge systems that exist. And if we can't escape that, or if we don't know there are alternative ways of like seeing ourselves, then you just become trapped by these controlling forces.
What are you curious about yourself in general?
Um, well, I mean, it also goes along with all these things that we were just talking
Of
about,
course.
of course. I think I'm curious to know how I can like work in the right explanation that will shape me, you know? Like I've done a lot of work on understanding like these larger systems and how I could potentially be controlled and how my sense of identity is shaped by these systems and how sometimes that's not bad. That's just the way it is. Um, but my question is, I want to live the best life that I could possibly live, where I don't have to experience like terrible shame of like who I am and I'm proud of who I am. And I'm curious to find like where are the best practices for me personally to like be so confident with my own identity. Like I think I've already started exploring that like with my dance and with contact, but I think there's a lot more that I could do. Um and I'm just kind of curious where that will go in my life. I'm sure I will like learn about so many new spaces where I can do that in. But yeah.
Well, I think you have a good start and like a proactive attitude about it. That's healthy. That's good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm wanting to do the research. I want to do the general research about rituals, and I also want to do the research on myself and like what those best practices are for me. Because
Yeah. Well, wrapping up our conversation, one last question. How do you envision growth, success, and fulfillment in your life?
mm. And once again, it kind of culminates in all of these themes, I would say. Like it's like the growth that I want to see is about this type of exploration that I want to do for myself. But I think the larger growth, like where I want to see my life go, has a lot to do with community. Because I think that that's one of the things I found most important in this world and as social creatures, as like a human
Yeah.
being. That's what we need. And I think my growth has always followed the branches of my friendships, and it will continue to do that because the best way to learn is with other people. And fulfillment for me is about like claiming an identity as my own, contributing to it, being changed by it. I want to look back and see people who moved me and who I moved and mutual relationships that show like me my own impact on the world. And if I can create art that inspires others along the way, like that's kind of like everything that I want to see in my life
Yeah.
to be proud and like to feel satisfied.
I love that. It's very blossoming, very inspiring, empowering. Yeah. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for coming on and being a
Yes.
part of Blue Byron Books, and I'm energized where we will go.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. It was a great conversation.